I'm about to tell you something that might feel like a revelation. Something that will make you rethink every late night, every skipped meal, every stressful text you sent hoping he'd notice. Because 30 days ago, I was a hormonal mess. Exhausted, unpredictable, moody, and secretly doubting my worth in ways I never admitted to anyone. And then something happened, something subtle, dangerous even, because it didn't involve a new wardrobe, a new man, or a drastic diet. It involved something far more powerful. Understanding that my body, my hormones, my cycles, were the ultimate currency of my feminine power. And when I began to honor them instead of fight them, everything shifted, not gradually, not politely, but explosively, so that by the end of those 30 days, rooms reoriented themselves around me. Conversations bent toward me naturally. Men who once ignored me now sought my attention without realizing why. And women leaned in, curious, questioning, intrigued. Because here's the truth no one wants to admit. A woman in hormonal alignment is magnetic. Not because of effort, but because of presence. And presence is rare. And rare commands attention. And commands respect. And if this is landing for you already, subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay with me. Because this isn't about chasing him. It's about reclaiming yourself. And reclamation has consequences that are luxurious, thrilling, and absolutely intoxicating. And I know this might sound dramatic, but let me show you how the first week alone transformed my energy. Because I started small. I started private. I started observing my sleep, my moods, my cravings, my subtle irritations, and I treated them like data, like sacred signals, not annoyances. And as I began regulating them, my confidence didn't just improve. It became inevitable. It became dominant. It became that quiet force that you feel in a room before you see it. That subtle gravity that makes people lean closer to hear what you say. And men, women, colleagues, friends, they began responding differently, not because I changed externally, but because I had stopped leaking energy in invisible ways that made me negotiable. And psychology proves it. When your nervous system is regulated, when your hormones are balanced, your brain projects stability, abundance, and presence attracts attention naturally. And when attention is drawn, desire follows. And desire is what people remember long after they leave the room. And if this is resonating with you, comment your biggest takeaway below. Because awareness without action is nothing, and action without alignment is empty. So we're going to start with the principle that changed everything. Observation without judgment, and observation without obsession. Because a woman who watches herself without shame learns faster than 1,000 advice columns could ever teach her. And in that first week, I realized that alignment was seductive in the purest sense. Because it meant I no longer needed validation from anyone to feel irresistible. And that self-possession is more alluring than any outfit, any hairstyle, any perfectly filtered post. Because it radiates, it permeates, it magnetizes. And once you feel that, everything else bends toward you without effort, without drama, without chasing. And the subtle dominance you carry then becomes natural, not performative. And I want you to feel that now. Just imagining it, just breathing into that possibility. Because that's where real transformation begins. By the second week, the changes became visible. Not because I posted updates or bragged about self-care rituals, but because my energy was no longer scattered, no longer reactive, no longer seeking validation through chaos. And this is where the philosophical side of feminine mastery intersects with biology. Because as Aristotle said, excellence is not an act but a habit, and habits shape perception, and perception shapes reality. And I began to cultivate small, intentional habits, eating when my body was hungry, resting when it signaled fatigue, moving when it craved release. And these habits, mundane to anyone watching, were transformational internally. Because regulating my hormones meant I could show up fully present in every interaction, emotionally precise, energetically aligned, And that level of attunement is rare. It's dangerous even. Because people aren't used to women who carry themselves like a full ecosystem, whose internal world is complete, whose cycles are honored, whose moods are respected. And as a result, men became more focused, more intentional, more present, not because I asked them to, but because the energy I radiated invited presence and repelled distraction. And women leaned closer, curious, absorbing how a single month could yield this kind of power. And the psychological principle is simple. When a woman stops being accessible to chaos and starts being accessible to alignment, she becomes the prize without trying. And this is where subtle dominance reveals itself. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to enforce rules. You simply become the environment that people want to inhabit, the standard that they unconsciously measure themselves against, the energy that they can't ignore. And if this is speaking to you, I want you to hit subscribe now. Turn on notifications, because what comes next is about embedding these rhythms into your life, so that every day, every week, every month, you are not only regulating your hormones, but mastering them. And mastering them means mastering desire, attention, presence, and ultimately, the way you are perceived. And perception, as you'll see, shapes attraction, respect, and longevity in relationships, because people respond to energy long before they respond to words. And when that energy is consistent, deliberate, and balanced, it becomes unforgettable. By day 30, the transformation was undeniable. Not because I looked different, not because my wardrobe changed, not because I wore makeup differently, but because I moved through the world with a calibrated rhythm, a sovereign presence, a quiet yet electric authority. And this is where luxury, psychology, and feminine power converge. Because a woman whose body, mind, and energy are synchronized becomes impossible to ignore. And the men who underestimated me before, now found themselves drawn in, thinking they were noticing subtle charms, when in reality they were responding to alignment, to confidence, to magnetic, regulated energy. And this is the ultimate feminine hack. You don't chase. You embody. You don't negotiate. You radiate. And the results are inevitable, irresistible, unforgettable. And if you're hearing this, I want you to comment, I needed this below. Not as an obligation, but as a declaration. Because this is the moment you stop being a hormonal mess. The moment you step fully into your power. The moment you realize that 30 days of attention, observation, care, and regulation can transform not just your energy, but the way the world interacts with you, the way men respond to you, the way women observe and respect you, the way life rearranges itself to match your alignment. And if you want to live this, if you want to embody it, stay connected. Rewatch this video. Integrate these practices. Honor your body, your cycles, your rhythms, and trust me when I say, a woman in alignment is not merely seen. She is unforgettable. And once you step into that, nothing, no man, no circumstance, no opinion can diminish your presence or your value. And here's the part that most women never get told. The secret that transforms effort into effortless magnetism. When your hormones are balanced, when your sleep, nutrition, movement, and emotional rhythms are honored, you stop showing up fragmented. You stop negotiating for attention, and you stop performing for desire. Because your body is finally speaking in the only language that matters: clarity, presence, and consistency. And people respond instinctively, unconsciously, magnetically, without realizing why they are drawn to you. And this is the true luxury of feminine power. It doesn't scream. It hums. It moves silently but profoundly through the world, shifting interactions, bending dynamics, drawing respect without explanation, drawing desire without drama, and drawing admiration without effort. And I noticed it in the way conversations deepened naturally, in how people leaned in when I spoke, in how men became attentive and focused without me asking for anything, in how women leaned closer, curious, admiring, absorbing subtle energy cues that I didn't even have to point out. Because energy speaks louder than words. And psychology proves humans mirror the nervous system of others before they mirror their words or intentions. And when your system is stable, calm, regulated, it triggers attention, safety, and respect automatically. And I want you to feel that now, imagining how it would change your interactions if you no longer leaked energy, no longer over-explained, no longer scrambled for validation, no longer tolerated chaos disguised as affection. Because the moment you stop compromising your rhythms, you start to magnetize alignment. And alignment is seductive, irresistible, unforgettable. And once you embody that, you no longer need to chase or convince. You simply curate, you attract, and you allow only what resonates to stay. And this is where subtle dominance comes in. It's not control. It's a quiet insistence on your own standards, your own presence, your own cycles, your own energy, and the world rearranges itself in response. And if you are listening and your heart is already racing, that's good. That's your intuition recognizing the truth. Because the woman who honors her body, her mind, and her energy simultaneously becomes a force of nature. And forces are remembered. They are respected. And they are never ignored. And this is exactly what happened to me in 30 Days Woman, who was once unpredictable, exhausted, and overlooked became magnetic, composed, and irresistible, not because she added anything to herself externally, but because she reclaimed what was always hers internally. And if you want to feel that in your own life, start small. Honor your sleep, honor your hunger, honor your movement, honor your emotional boundaries. And notice how the world responds to the woman who is finally fully herself. And I want you to comment your biggest takeaway. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and integrate this. Because this is the moment you step into your own sovereignty, your own magnetism, and your own unforgettable power. And once you do that, no circumstance, no man, no opinion, no chaos can ever diminish your presence or your value again.